It's the story of your life. You're moving down the page, and you know.
Morning glory, America. It's Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway Live. Bonjour, hi, Canada. The good, the news, the bad news, the ugly news out of Ukraine. The good news, Ukrainian forces, according to the Ministry of Defense of the United Kingdom, have pushed Russian forces back from Kyiv by 35 kilometers, getting close to the airport, Hostomel airfield. That's a temporary win in the eyes of the British Ministry of Defense. You can't count that. You can't put it in the books, but it's good news. The bad news, according to the Times of Israel, 300 were killed in the attack on the Mariupol theater. 300 people killed. The worst news of all, well, Joe Biden discussed it yesterday at the NATO summit, cut number one of the president.
With regard to food shortage, yes, we did talk about food shortages. And it's going to be real. The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia. It's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well, including European
countries. He never
gets
it quite right. There are going to be food shortages around the world, not because of our sanctions, but because Russia has destroyed the world's breadbasket in Ukraine. The ability to plant wheat in Russia and Ukraine has been, or to export wheat from Russia is significant, but the ability to plant and harvest in Ukraine, which is Europe's breadbasket, has been obliterated for a season. So, of course, there's going to be food shortages. The immediate crisis is, however, starvation for the children of Ukraine. I saw a picture yesterday, I won't ever forget. A little 7-year-old boy in a down jacket crying and walking along the street. The stories of the abandoned children whose parents are dead. There are thousands of them. They are, pray for them. Some of them are showing up in the country unaccompanied. They're unlike the miners crossing the Rio Grande in the United States unaccompanied. They're not being guided by coyotes of any sort. They're wandering across borders. Biden has called for Russia to be expelled from the G20. Good for the president on that. And he's laying down some red lines. It's always a little bit risky with a Democrat, as we learned under President Obama. Cut number 2.
So you've warned about the real threat of chemical weapons being used. Have you gathered specific intelligence that suggests that President Putin is deploying these weapons, moving them to position, or considering their use? And would the U.S. or NATO respond with military action if he did use chemical weapons?
You know, on the first question, I can't answer that. I'm not going to give you intelligence data, number one. Number two, we would respond. We would respond if he uses it. The nature of the response would depend on the nature of the use.
Yeah, we're getting awfully close to what Obama threatened to do and then didn't do, and which Vladimir Putin saw Obama not do when Joe Biden was vice president, which is promised to respond to chemical weapons. He did, but can you believe him? Meanwhile, he made an incoherent statement. That's kind of par for the course for the president. Cut number 3.
Do you believe the action today will have an impact on making Russia change course in Ukraine?
That's not what I said. You're playing a game with me. I know. The answer is no.
No, the answer is no. Let's play that again. Listen closely to the question.
Do you believe the action today will have an impact on making Russia change course in Ukraine?
That's not what I said. You're playing a game with me. I know. The answer is no.
Sanctions are not going to deter Putin, is what he said. Before the war, he said the sanctions would deter Putin. If he had put them in place before the war, if he had done anything right, we wouldn't be where we are. But then we got this classic Joe Biden. It goes on a button on my missing machine. Cut number 4.
No, that's not how I think of this. I've been dealing with foreign policy for longer than anybody that's involved in this process right now. You
know what? I just think of Bob Gates. Joe Biden has been there since 1972, and he's been wrong every year that he's been there. And he was the guy who was hanging around when Donald Trump asked for re-election in the middle of COVID and got turned down, barely. And so Joe Biden's in there, and we're stuck for 3 more years, and everyone's got buyer's remorse. Meanwhile, they are running into trouble with Judge Brown Jackson. I don't know if she's going to get any Republican votes. Originally, I thought she'd get a lot. But that soft-on-crime president and those soft-on-crime Democrats and the soft-on-crime Democratic Party and the soft-on-crime prosecutors that have brought a national crime crisis down on America's head, well, they have got themselves a soft-on-crime justice. And Mitch McConnell took to the floor. We can't play you the whole thing, but here's what he said in part, cut number 8.
The Judiciary Committee has completed its hearing for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. I enjoyed meeting the nominee I went into the Senate's process with an open mind, but after studying the nominee's record and watching her performance this week, I cannot and will not support Judge Jackson for a lifetime appointment to
That's a no. And then let's go to Tom Cotton on with Sean Hannity last night, cut 13.
Yeah, Sean, in this case of U.S. v. Hawkins, as you said, the guidelines called for 8 to 10 years. The prosecutors asked for 2 years since he pleaded guilty. She only gave him 3 months. That's got a lot of attention. We just discovered this week, though, that he was back in front of her 6 years later in 2019. And I asked her about this yesterday, why she, on the recommendation of the probation office, gave him 6 more months in a halfway house, twice what he got for his original crime, plus more monitoring of his computer usage. She claimed that she didn't know. But we learned today through a leak from the probation office that 6 years on, he was still seeking out sexual images of young boys, which just goes to show how dangerous her lenient sentences are in these cases, which are really just a case of her soft on crime approach, always giving the shortest sentence possible. If she had given him 8 to 10 years, he would have been in prison then. If she had given him at least 2 years, maybe he would have appreciated the gravity of his crime, but she didn't. And now we need to dig in carefully into every case in which she gave these short sentences to sexual predators and other serious felons to see if they also went back and committed further crimes.
Let me ask you.
Yeah, Tom Cotton is right. She is a far-left activist. And Joe Biden is soft on crime. The Senate Democrats are soft on crime. The Democratic Party is soft on crime. Legacy Media is soft on crime. And Judge Brown Jackson is soft on crime. She's qualified. She's qualified because the United States Constitution says you're qualified if you get 51 votes. That's the only condition. You don't have to be 25. You can't be, there's no other. You don't even have to be a lawyer to be on the Supreme Court. She's qualified. All right? If you get 51 votes. I thought she was going to get 65 at the beginning of this, and she talked herself down to where the over-under is now 51. I actually can't see Lisa Murkowski voting for her, given the child abuse scandals that Jesuits did in some very remote villages among the Alaskan Native peoples, and it's fresh and top of mind. And I just can't see her doing it. I can see you, however, going to HughHewitt.com and contributing to Food for the Poor's effort in Ukraine. Please be as generous as possible. My number is 1-800-520-1234. I may take one call this morning. 1-800-520-1234. We have Lindsey Graham coming up next hour. Matthew Foldy of the Washington Free Beacon. We got a lot ahead. Don't go anywhere, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. It's Friday, America. That means Sonny Bunch, the official movie critic of the Hugh Hewitt Show, joins us. I always imagined Sonny in a convertible driving down Sunset Boulevard past Capitol Records amid all the billboards for the new movies when he comes up. That's how I imagine it. That's how I'm thinking about it. Sonny Bunch, good morning.
Good morning, Hugh.
Do you have anything? The Lost City is out. I saw that. Have you seen The Lost City? Sandra Bullock, Channing Tatum.
The Lost City. I have. You've already seen it too, Hugh?
No, I just saw that it's the only thing that I might go see this weekend.
Yeah. So The Lost City, it's very interesting. The Lost City is very much a movie from a different era, right? This is a movie like Romancing the Stone or something like that. It's an action comedy, an action rom-com. It has big stars. I think you could make a case that Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum are, the biggest male and female movie star as far as star qua star goes, a person that you go to see in a movie because they are in it, right? Channing Tatum right now currently has the movie Dog out as well, which is surprising box office prognosticators by sticking around. It's grossed a little over $50 million now.
I'm not surprised because the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt wanted to go see it. I said absolutely not. I saw the whole movie in the trailer. Have you seen that?
The trailer for Dog, yeah. I mean, look, it's a nice little movie. It's not out there blowing people away with the great camera work or anything like that. But it's a pretty nice little movie.
Yeah, and people want to go to the movies.
I think people are getting back to the point where they want to just go to the movies. You see this in the weekend-to-weekend drop-offs because there's nothing new in so many weekends. The weekend drop-offs are very low. People want to get back. So The Lost City, again, it's a kind of an old throwback movie. Sandra Bullock plays a romance novelist named Loretta Sage, she's kind of middle-aged. She's drinking her wine in her bathtub. She's depressed. She doesn't want to do these dumb romance novels anymore, so she's gonna end it after this one. It's a series of books that features a female Indiana Jones type character called Dr. Lovemore, who is partnered with the dim-witted Dash. I can't remember what his Dash McMahon. Dash McMahon is his ridiculous name.
I like Dash.
Who is
he's, what are you getting against Dash? Dash could go places. Dash is a cool name.
Dash is a fad sort of name, a fad.
I think we're going to call Dwayne Dash from now on. Dash Patterson. Don't you think that works?
We'll have to workshop this. We'll workshop this later.
Right.
But anyway, so these novels, she's done. She doesn't want to write them anymore. She goes out on a book tour, and on the first stop on the book tour, she is kidnapped by a deranged scion of a publishing house, multimedia mogul type, right? Think the Murdochs, right?
Murdochs, yeah.
Basically gets kidnapped by a deranged Murdoch, who was played by Daniel Radcliffe in this movie. Of course, people will best know him as Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. How is this not romancing the stone? What you've just told me is...
It's very similar. It's very, very similar in more ways than one, really. I mean, again, it's an original film. It's not based on any intellectual property. It is a pretty standard rom-com action sort of thing. It depends entirely. The whole thing works. It rises and falls entirely on the charisma and the star power between Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum. And let me tell you, again, this is not a perfect movie. I wouldn't say this is not a 5-star classic. It's not. I don't think it's even as good as Romancing the Stone. Right? Romancing the Stone, better movie.
Do you think it was pitched? Imagine Romancing the Stone meets Harry Potter. Is that what they did?
No. I mean, it's not like there's any magic or anything, right?
No, but they got Harry Potter.
He's just the villain. But I will say he's very good in this. I
like Daniel Radcliffe a lot. He does good work.
He's made some interesting choices since doing the Harry Potter movies. He's kind of like Robert Pattinson from the Twilight movies, right? Who has made some interesting choices. Even if you and I don't care for the Batman, he has made some good, interesting.
Well, Radcliffe
movies.
made that one about the kid going back to Eastern Europe for his roots. I can't remember what it was, but it was very good. But go on, more about this. Tell me if I should go. Should I go, Sonny? I think you're saying yes.
So I like it. It's a very good star-driven action rom. We haven't even talked about Brad Pitt is in this.
What?
He has a supporting role. He plays Jack Traynor, who is a Navy SEAL, CIA extraction agent type character. He shows up to rescue Loretta Sage from the clutches of the evil Abigail
Romancing
Fairfax.
the Stone meets Spy Game. I love Spy Games. I might watch it again on this, just being reminded of it. So
look, I like this movie. It's got a bunch of big stars. They're all doing big star things. They're very charming. They're winning. This is the sort of movie that has to succeed if theaters are going to have a future. Not every movie can be a big comic book blockbuster. Not every movie can be a horror movie that appeals to 18 to 24-year-olds. This is a movie that is square in the kind of, let's say, young couple to middle-aged couple.
Everybody come on down and bring the grandkids, right?
This is a date night movie. And if you want a future where theaters exist, where you're able to go to the movies to see frankly the big comic book movie, right? They need to have movies like this be a big hit because otherwise there's just not enough stuff.
Sonny Bunch, existential question. They can't survive on big comic book movies. Eventually, people are satiated on everything, right? You can't run back Iron Man again and again. You can't Avengers 400. It doesn't work.
I agree with that. I mean, I don't think we're at the point where comic book fatigue is hitting in yet. Just look at the results on, Spider-Man and the Batman. The Batman is over $300 million after 4 weekends. It's gonna keep going here. I think it's gonna.
And that's off of one showing, right?
That's up
pretty much. But you need movies like this. You need movies like this based on original ideas that could frankly generate their own franchise. I would watch 4 or 5 more of these Lost City type movies. Not necessarily the Lost City, but movies starring Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock.
But you're telling me Dash survives, so like Dash Patterson survives this, and so you just gave us a spoiler.
I don't want to spoil it, but the ending is relatively happy. You're gonna, it's not sending audiences out there sighing into the night, kicking the air, saying, "Oh, why did I waste my time watching that?" It's a crowd-pleasing sort of movie.
So this is Jungle Cruise without the theme park attached to it.
There you go. It's Romancing the Stone. You're too young, Dash. Yeah. Dash, go away for a moment. I want to ask him about whether we'll ever have another Casablanca.
Well, I mean, a movie like Casablanca is rare because it is rare genius. I mean, Casablanca is an interesting movie because it's created in the studio system, right? It was supposed to just be another programmer. It was not supposed to be at a massive piece of history-making cinema, but it just all the pieces came together. It's like the perfect example of what the studios did very, very well.
So, will we ever get anything that small and that big, if you understand what I mean? It's a small movie, it's a big movie, and they don't make them anymore.
No, I mean, that sort of thing, let me, I want to be very careful how I say that. It's not impossible for the studios to make that sort of thing again. It could happen. The Lost City actually gets at kind of why a movie like that is hard to make. I mean, in The Lost City, there are a lot of scenes that are very clearly dubbed with ADR. There were some reshoots. You could tell where they're adding jokes in after the fact. There's less confidence in the ability to capture things on the screen quickly the first time around. You get lots of additions via publicity screenings, right? You get the screenings with audiences, and they go in and they add more jokes, or
I've done many of those. Yeah,
subplots. And, it's hard to have something like Casablanca where it's just genius that they trust and make, and it comes out and everything works out. So,
is there ever going to be another Blade Runner, a movie that is the first Blade Runner that is actually prophetic?
Sure. I mean, I think you could. Yes, but these are all going to come from the indie festival A24 type world, right? These are movies that are you're talking about art. And art is the province now of not the big studios, but the smaller indie studios.
I don't know what A24 is, by the way.
Well, A24 is just a boutique studio. They have several movies out right now. One is called X. The other is called Everything Everywhere All at Once, which if you live in New York and LA, it's out now. I'll talk about it more next weekend or the weekend after. But if you live in New York and LA, go see Everything Everywhere All at Once. Great movie.
Interesting. X is available in Washington, D.C. X is out.
X is everywhere, but it's a horror movie, Hugh. You wouldn't.
Oh, not going to go there. Okay.
A24 also made like The Green Knight, but they make low budget to mid budget indie movies, and those are among the most celebrated in the land. They won an Oscar for Moonlight. Uncut Gems was
that's really good. Adam Sandler movie, really good.
Yeah, but that's the sort of studio, and it's a very small studio. It's more of a distribution label than a studio, but that's the sort of studio where this sort of movie will come from. There's one that came out recently that they made that I like quite a lot called After Yang. Which is about a family that has a robot helper that breaks down, and it's all about the question of, speaking of Blade Runner, is this robot human-like enough to need to protect, basically? It's all about memory and what defines us and who we are and blah, blah, blah. But it's nobody's going to end up seeing that because it went straight to Showtime.
Yeah, you're right. But I am going to go see this new one with Sandra Bullock, because I see everything with Sandra Bullock. I will drop everything, go see Sandra Bullock. But Sonny Bunch at least has given me the okay, the thumbs up on that. Sonny Bunch, did you review that in the Post?
No, I have a review up at the Bulwark. Should be up now. So.
All right, remember, go and get Sonny Bunch at the movies with at the Bulwark, Goes to the Movies podcast, or Sonny Bunch on the movie aisle. What's the name of that podcast, Sonny?
Across the Movie Aisle. Across the Movie Aisle.
Been a while. I'm just out of practice, but now that Dash Patterson is back, I'll be able to catch up. Thank you, Sonny Bunch, at Sonny Bunch on Twitter. Joined now by Tarzana Joe, poet laureate of the Hugh Hewitt Show. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Hugh. This has been a week of questioning, and I have some questions, too. Folks, there are some questions where there really are no answers, like studying a pinhead for a count of angel dancers. The sum of dancing angels, like so much useless chatter, is spoken as a metaphor for things of no great matter. Email me that question, and I'll write return to sender. Likewise, please don't ask me if an angel has a gender. That's just as if you asked me if I think that saints eat cereal. Such inquiries lack merit in the realms that are ethereal. But here on terra firma, our home of last resort, there are some disputations that are brimming with import. For simple, basic questions in great declining nations, when posed in public settings, present vast complications, and people whose ambition requires they be nice answer with 10 paragraphs when one word would suffice. Now, some say prudent jurists shouldn't telegraph positions, and it really doesn't matter if they won't give definitions. They point accusing fingers at grandstanding Senate frippery, ignoring recent evidence that slopes are really slippery. So robbers are rewarded and murderers acquitted, because if nothing matters, everything's permitted. That's a good question by Tarzana Joe.
That's a good poem by Tarzana Joe. Joe,
Well,
will it be posted?
I like that.
Will that be over at tarzanajoe.com shortly?
Of course.
Why do I hear echoes in my head here? Have you gone into the subterranean cavern in Tarzana to talk to me?
No, there's no lockdown here. It must be a technical electrical cavern.
Well, we still, and you are open for business, receiving poetry commissions. Tarzana Joe at Reagan.com. Tarzana Joe at Reagan.com.
Indeed, I am. Thank you.
I hope people need, for all their poetry needs, they commission Joe. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway live. You know the State of the Union, the one that you've forgotten already? Because it was 2 weeks ago. In it, President Biden declared a return to offices. Like, I'm back in my studio, and pretty soon we're going to be back in the studio on Special Report, where I'll be tonight. What about the Congress? Well, Matthew Foldy of the Washington Free Beacon decided to find out, along with his colleague Joseph Simonson, I guess. Matthew Foldy joins me now. Hello, Matthew. Good morning.
Hey, great to be back with you.
So there you had the president saying, everybody, ollie, in free, go back to work. What did you find out when you went up on Capitol Hill?
Well, it looks like everyone is back to working in person in America except for elected Democrats. I walked around over 10 miles on Capitol Hill and found that the Capitol is still closed and Democrats are still openly teleworking. So tens of millions of Americans, whether they're in California, New York, Massachusetts, or swing states like Nevada, still have their elected representatives working from home. This does not signal to me that Democrats are ready to return to normalcy, even despite what Biden said during the State of the Union, that I think you're right, everyone forgot.
Everyone has forgotten, but he said in the State of the Union, ollie, in free, it's time for Americans to get back to work and fill our great downtowns again. People working from home can feel safe and begin return from office. But then you went to Chuck Schumer's office, Catherine Cortez Masto, the senator, soon to be ex-senator from Nevada, Bernie Sanders' office. You went all over the place. Now, I want to ask, out of fairness, Sheldon Whitehouse doesn't, I'm glad he's not there, actually. Isn't he the dumbest guy in the Senate, Matthew? Can you answer that, or are you a reporter and you can't have an opinion?
I'll defer to you on this.
Okay, he is the dumbest guy in the Senate. Now, the dumbest gal in the Senate is Mazie Hirono. And if you put the two of them on Jeopardy, whoever is number 3 would win. But let's be fair, were the Republicans in their offices?
I would say if you put both of them on Jeopardy, they'd both be teleworking for it. But maybe Hirono and White House are both closed. I would say almost every Republican office was in person when I was there.
Even Tom Cotton's?
Oh, yeah.
Noonan never goes to work. That's one of his...
But Cotton, the rest of his office was there.
All right, because Noonan just basically he's an Air Force guy, so he doesn't show up. I mean,
exactly.
It's the Air Force people don't go to work. So, Matthew, did any of them give you a statement explaining why they're not back in their offices yet?
So we reached out to everyone we put in this article, and look, the problem extends to the House of Representatives as well. AOC's office has a max capacity of 2, for example, because that's science, in case you didn't know. So no one defended teleworking. Some offices did try gaslighting us. They would say, well, we're in person. And then we responded and said, look, Matthew was on Capitol Hill at 2:59 p.m., and your office had mail piled up outside of it. So it's possible that, I guess, they just walk in, close the door behind them, and just leave mail there. But in the days since I published the story, Schumer sent in a staff assistant, and the Senate Democratic Policy Council, this is incredible. It's a locked door, lights turned off, newspapers piled up basically to the ceiling. And after we wrote the story, they kept everything the same in this locked room, but they took the name off the door. So they're going back in, and they're just trying to hide it. Jennifer Wexton, who has a competitive reelection in Virginia, she had a sign on her door that I posted a picture of saying, this office is teleworking. In the days since the article went up, that sign is now off her door, but they are still not working in person. So we caught the Democrats completely red-handed, straight up not working. And rather than coming in to work, they're just removing the evidence that they're not working.
Well, now, all that means is that you've got to go and stake it out, Matthew. I mean, if the Free Beacon, if Eliana is listening, I just put you in camo. I guess they won't let you into the House office buildings if you're in camo. But you could dress like a Democrat and just film film for 10 hours.
But Hugh, the government is not even open. I think people don't realize that if you're a regular person, you cannot go into the House of Representatives when it's run by Nancy Pelosi. You need to be escorted in at all times. You need to be checked in by an office. You cannot walk around the People's House of Representatives when Democrats are in control. It is still locked down completely. So as much as I'd like to stake it out, it is an effort to actually get in to access our own government. It's crazy.
Well, I ran into that. I went over to see Senator Cruz before when I was back in the late December, and it was like a nightmare to meet him. And he had to send over a staffer to meet me at one place and take me in, and then we took the train. I had broken my toe. It was kind of a nightmare deal. So what's the follow-up on this, Matthew? What are you going to do to follow up? Because I think the American people would actually be angry if they see this, because everybody else is going back to work. Even Dash Patterson, my producer, is back to work.
Well, I'm not going to scoop myself yet, but we have a very big follow-up that this story is actually worse than you think it is. But in the meantime, I'm cataloging now on the Hill, people who work there sending me the updates of these offices are now in person, or they're now sending in their most junior staff to at least sit at the front desk, or in the case of Jennifer Wexton, they're removing the evidence that they're teleworking. But I'm working on a very big national follow-up to Democrats not working. But in the meantime, I've already seen Senate campaigns, Senate committees, House campaigns, House committees capitalize on the very, I think, straightforward point to voters that Democrats are literally not working for you. They're not showing up. They're asking for your vote. One of the Democratic offices I visited is this Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. I don't think anyone's ever heard of her from Michigan. She had a guest sign-in book outside her office. The last time anyone signed in to her office was over 2 years ago. 11th, 2020.
I have one suggestion for a follow-up for you, Matthew, is that California is falling apart, and they're going to give $400 gas cards out to people, and crime. Dwayne, Dash Patterson, what did the chief of police say yesterday? Stop wearing shiny objects in L.A.?
If you're living in L.A., do not wear anything of value, watches or jewelry, anything on your person, because you're going to get mugged.
So here's my suggestion, Matthew. I would like to know how many members of congressional offices in California are victims of crime. Because in California, crime is off of the charts. and I don't think the congressional delegation gets. I love stories like this. This is
They can't
actually
get mugged if they don't leave their house, right?
you can't if you
broken
stay.
into.
Well, the rise in crime at residential levels is pretty high. I also don't know if they get the $400 gas cards. But Matthew, this was a wonderful story. This was brilliant. My compliments to you. What's your Twitter handle?
Just my name, Matthew Foldy.
Yeah, that's spelled Foldi. How old are you, Matthew?
I am 25.
I thought so. I looked at this. I said, this young man, he's got 50 years of doing this ahead of him. Do you know that? You got to walk the halls of Congress for 50 years taking pictures of empty offices because they're not going back to work.
At this rate, they're never going back.
All right. Matthew Foldy, thank you so much. Follow him at Matthew Foldy on Twitter and at Washington Free Beacon. AOC has gone after Joe Manchin in a fiery speech, but I don't have it for you. I'll get it for you for the next segment. I'm just telling Dwayne if he goes to the recount on Twitter, he can find it. Can you do that for me, General Ishimo? Hey, Dash Patterson. Well, you tell him to go and get to the recount. I've got to play that. Meanwhile,
What do you need?
AOC took out after Joe Manchin last night, and I'm watching it on Twitter over at the recount.
That's spectacular timing with a vote coming up on a judge.
I know. I love that. So that's why I want to play it. I want Joe Manchin to know how much he's beloved by the Democratic base.
I'll go find it.
Dash off and find it. Dash Patterson to the rescue. Many of you have asked me, did General Ben wife have the baby? Yes, we have General. What's the feminine of Ben? Is there a feminine Benjamina? Benjamina. We have little Benjamina is in the world, and she's great. She's fine. Everybody's home. Everybody's well. You got to come back to work, Ben, because back America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. If you've listened to the show for years, you know I'm against the use of race to award benefits or inflict penalties in any context. It's unconstitutional when it's done by the state. Usually runs afoul of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Chief Justice Roberts, in his opinion in Parents Involved in Community Schools versus Seattle School District Number 1, a 2007 opinion, said it best. The way to end discrimination on the basis of race is to stop discriminating on the basis of race. That came up in the hearings of Judge Brown this week, Brown Jackson. And I am joined now by Kenny Shue, who is the head of one of the sponsors of our show, Color Us United. Hello, Kenny. Good morning.
Hey, good to see you again, Hugh.
Tell me what you thought about the hearings of Judge Brown Jackson, especially her decision to recuse herself from the Harvard litigation in which you're involved.
I think that was huge and also critical as necessary. She is a Harvard Board of Overseers member. She was Harvard Law, Harvard College, Harvard Board of Overseers. Harvard is in her blood. And if you listen to the way she talks like a upper middle class liberal woman of any race who went to Harvard. She consistently touts the value of so-called diversity, even though what Harvard really wants is race preferences, which, as we all know, race is hardly the only form of diversity out there. This is something the Asian Americans suing Harvard need to win. I think it is something that is definitely capable of being won. And I'm glad that she recused herself from the Harvard case.
I think she should. By the way, I'm a Harvard grad, class of 78. So it's my alma mater. I love my alma mater. But she ought to be off the Board of Overseers. They have a $30 billion endowment. She's conflicted on everything. So, Kenny, tell people about Color Us United, what the mission of the organization is. I know you're behind the lawsuit that she agreed to recuse herself from. Tell us some background about Color Us United.
Color Us United is an organization that stands for a race-blind America. That's what we want, right? We just want an America where people don't have to make assumptions about each other based on the color of their skin. But now we're just moving in the opposite direction. People are so divisive now. They're dividing us. They're saying that white people are privileged, that black people are oppressed. They're ignoring cultural nuance. And now they're using race as a way to put people down and cause resentment in companies like American Express, nonprofits like the Salvation Army. We're fighting all of that. We're standing up for the ordinary American who does not want to live in a country where race is put in the equation.
Now, Kenny, I disagree with you about the Salvation Army. I investigated it myself. I sat down with the president and the co-president of the organization, the general in charge, the commander in charge of America. I think that's a bad rap, but I think American Express is a good rap. And so the Un-American Express campaign, tell us about that.
Yeah, so the Un-American Express campaign is the What we're tackling right now, American Express has of course been has been pushing these race-based hiring and promotion policies. They've basically been instilling critical race theory trainings inside their organization, where they brought in a Harvard law professor to talk about how capitalism is racist to a credit card company. Funny. And so, they're just going in a completely opposite direction from where we need to go. So we started, Colorist United, we started the Un-American Express campaign, where you can go to unamericanexpress.com and petition the investors of American Express to divest from this company until they get rid of their woke policies. And we need to start this movement because it's so important. We should not create a culture where racial resentment is the normal state of affairs in American companies.
Yeah, I tell my law students, I've been teaching this for 25 years, Kenny, the use of race or ethnicity or religion to award benefits or inflict penalties is unconstitutional by the state, and it's mostly outlawed by the 1964 Civil Rights Act. I don't know whether or not you're going to win at the Supreme Court in the Harvard case, but I know that Judge Brown Jackson's not going to have anything to do with it, and that's very good news. Have you heard anything from American Express, by the way? Have they said anything to you in response to the campaign?
They're trying to, of course, they're trying to wait us out and everything like that, but that's not going to happen because Americans are angry about the fact that policies are being pushed to try to intimidate them into silence so that they can go on with their racial preferences agenda. This is called DEI. They put it in their DEI programs. These are taking over companies right now. Companies are scared. One guy got fired in the middle of a racial equity policy where American Express gave bonuses out for firing white people and hiring people of other races. Another person is that we talked to from American Express felt that she couldn't even give negative feedback to her own black employees for fear of retaliation. This is not the culture that we want, and if we want to stop it, we have to fight it.
I want to give you a gift, Kenny. Revoke woke. That's my saying is revoke woke, like they revoke your card if you're in bad shape, or they revoke your license if you've DUI'd. Revoke woke across the country, beginning at unamericanexpress.com. Colorist United, Kenny Shute, thank you for joining me this morning. Head over to unamericanexpress.com or Color Us Woke. Revoke woke. Hugh Hewitt invented it. I believe in it. That's why they're a great sponsor of the show. Don't go anywhere, America. The Hillsdale Dialogue. Larry Arnn on Ukraine and Churchill. Straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. I'm Hugh Hewitt.